Well, there you go. That's Dave getting it all wrong. I thought I had it all sorted so that the mix minuses were minusing the mixes and stuff like that. And as per usual, I've got it completely wrong. However, I am in the driving seat tonight, don't you know? Yeah, so it's all going to go horribly wrong, as it usually does when I'm driving, because I'm not perfect. No, I'm not. Really. Trust me on this. I'm not. But I've got two more perfect men than I here tonight. The first of whom is going to be on screen before our guest is introduced is the one and only Marco van Basten. Hello, Marco. How are you doing, cock?
How do? I'm good. Yeah, it's all good here in the land of the Yorkshire.
How do? He says, I like it.
Now then.
Oh, we'll try split screen. There you are, sunshine. Look, it's gone split screen now. They and me together. You looking horribly tanned, and me looking pale and wan.
I'm normally this colour, don't you know?
No, but you look really horribly tanned. As folks will say, the colour gamut's gone here, there, and everywhere tonight. It really has. But I'm going to go back to where am I? I'm going to go back to me and introduce the next person who needs to cough. There, he's coughed. Now, if you didn't know what he looked like, I think everybody watching this has read the man, I think, of the moment. He's our man in Delhi with no Delhi belly. He is described by many as a scrot, but he isn't. He's Dick Puddlecote. Hello, Dick. I'm a port, and who knew it? No, that's not right either, is it? No, it's shocking. So, yes, thank you for coming on the show tonight. And before we get into the show any further, I want to say a huge, big thank you for the videos that you sent us from Delhi. That was above and beyond the Call of Duty, Bonnie lad, and we love you for it.
No problem at all. I enjoyed meeting them guys. They were really good fun. So it was an interesting experience with those.
Excellent. It sounded like it. Let's get straight into it. Look at how was it? I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how enjoyable was it? How frustrated did you get? And how many people did you want to murder?
Well, the first thing to say is India. If you haven't been there, it's just the maddest place I've ever been to. I mean, the roads especially. I wrote on the article I wrote about the Billion Lives Premier. The roads are just something to see. It's like I wrote in there, it's not traffic, it's a stampede. There's just a whole load of cars rushing headlong and trying to cut each other up. I would never, ever dream of driving in India. And I've been a driver as a profession for like 20 odd years because the place is just nuts. But it was an experience, a hell of an experience. And what a time to go. I mean, in the week I was there, we had the big smog that apparently reached national news over here as well. And halfway through the week, the Prime Minister decided that two notes were not legal tender anymore and just set off utter chaos in the entire country because everyone deals in cash. It's not over here where, you know, I go out places now and you don't need to take cash, you just use a card. Over there, everyone deals in cash. They don't have bank accounts, they just deal in cash. So you take away two of their notes and the place just goes crazy. And, you know, if you're going to be in a week in India, have two worldwide news stories just land on your doorstep, you know, while you're there is quite amazing.
Yes. While we were talking there, or while you were talking there, I was just playing in some of the footage that you sent over earlier today of the crowds wandering around in India, 2 shots round the square. And yeah, there's no driving on that, but yes, we have seen people drive in India, and it does look to be a complete, not a bloody mess.
It's not. They can't possibly have a highway code over there. They just drive straight onto roundabouts, and everyone's just looking at each other. And I don't think anyone has any order about it. You just drive around, just get where you want to go. And they've driven bumper to bumper, wing to wing. You know, the cars jammed right next to each other. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good fun. But if you're of a nervous disposition, don't get in a taxi in India because you'll just crap your pants. It's amazing stuff. It really is.
Yeah, I get the impression that it's pretty damn grotty. Now, Marco, I've just heard somebody say that, or not heard, but I saw somebody say that there's a lot of echo. Is that the case, or is it all sounding all right? Can we have some kind of idea? Because I want people to be able to hear this correctly.
As you can see, I've got two sets of heads on, and I'm just listening back to the live stream. So bear with me.
Yeah, well, where the live stream is at the minute, there'll be no echo because I muted myself, which is all good. I'll handle it. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yours, it's fine. To be fair, I'm not getting it.
Good. Well, let's go back to this. And there's Marco taking off the technical stuff as he does. So, right, Dick, let's go from day one. At the COP7, the Conference of the Parties, number 7 for the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. Now, these buggers were being buggers from the start, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the night before, apparently the venue, all around the venue, because the venue's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's an hour's drive or 40 minutes drive away from Delhi, and it's just a big building which is stuck in the middle of nowhere. And so all around the building is a big road, and it had sort of, street lamps down it. And apparently the night before, the tobacco farmers had put adverts up for their cause all the way around this thing the night before.
Uh-huh.
But then when we turned up, these adverts were gone. Apparently they've gone round, the authorities been to do with it, have gone round and ripped all these posters down. They didn't want anything to do with the tobacco farmers being advertised at all. It was, you might have seen some of the videos from the American and Canadian girls, or Faith Goldie and Lauren Southern, and Students for Liberty, where there were army guys there. There was sandbags and everything. This thing was heavily defended by the army, and they didn't want anything to go wrong. The government had apparently put $4 million into it, and they didn't want any protests to ruin things. So when we turned up, there was a lot of people hanging around who we found out later were tobacco farmers, and while I was waiting for my pass, apparently they held a small protest, a very peaceful protest, and then decided to have a meeting down at the Gymkhana Club just up the road, and then were told by the police that they'd just broken a law that had been passed the night before, that no more than 4 people can walk together at the same time, and were told to get on a bus and leave the area or be arrested. And most of them obviously got on the bus. Some of them protested and said, we're just here being peaceful, we want to have a meeting, which the police had closed down. So they got arrested. And the other ones were put on a bus and shepherded away from the venue and taken and dropped in a field about 40 minutes away and told, go home, don't try and come back. So it was just that sort of atmosphere right from the start. It was it's just shocking stuff, really. I was in the queue for the public tickets, and I was there at 7:30 in the morning. We waited, in the end, 3.5 hours, and coach loads of delegates were turning up, and they were all getting processed within 5-10 minutes. And they waited until every one of those had gone before they finally decided to process some of the public and hand out the badges. So we'd been there 3.5 hours, missed an hour of the start of the conference before we were allowed to go in to have a look. So it was understanding.
So this is transparency at its best, then, obviously.
Yeah. I'll give them this. I was expecting them to kick us out around about lunchtime, but they didn't. They left it until I think 5 minutes before the end of the first day, before they finally had this ceremonial evacuation of the heretics, where everyone who they deemed as being the wrong sort were kicked out. So
it gets to me, does all of this. I mean, we're talking here about an organisation that is supposedly dedicated to the health of the public, that is supposed to be the servants, if you like, of the public worldwide, and yet these buggers are determined that they're not going to let the public hear what their deliberations are. So when all this kicking out was happening, I mean, I'm gonna just drop to another shot and play in a sequence of photographs. Now, those of you of a nervous disposition might want to look away because the blue suit and sensible shoes are out. There is a lady, some of whom you might recognise her, some people that are watching, and she's actually taking pictures of Dick and Adam Cleve. Yes, not Adam, never mind. Go on, tell them who it is, Dick.
Well, it's Deborah. We were sitting sitting there. I mean, Adam Cleve has been to these things before. I haven't. I just turned up, didn't have a clue what was going on, and I know Adam from Twitter. He's easily recognisable because his avatar just happens to be his face. So it's very easy to find out who he is when you turn up. You just recognise him straight away. So anyway, I'm just talking to him about what's going on. He was having a bit of a laugh about it, saying they're just very disorganised, which was absolutely true. They were very disorganised. There were just pauses in speeches. They didn't seem to know what was coming next half the time. So there was me thinking we're going to this big dynamic conference, and there were just people who were just mumbling into a mic. It was all very uninspiring. But I was talking to him about this, and then you just heard this click, click, click going on, and you could see out the corner of your eye, and Deborah Arnott was there, and she ran round, she took one from the back, then she ran round the side, then she ran round the other side, and she took about 5 pictures in about, I don't know, 10 seconds or something, and then scampered off again. But it was really quite hilarious. I mean, it was just one of the funniest things you've ever seen. But if she wasn't the only one, I mean, we were sort of in this area, there was a little bit of tape at the front, and we were sitting behind it, and it had a sign there saying public. We had a camera trained on us almost all the time, a video camera, just watching us. And delegates would come along and stand in front of this tape and just take pictures of us and then scamper off again. Half a dozen, 6, 7, 8, just come along, take a load of pictures to the public. So it's obviously that they've got into the heads that everyone in the public is from tobacco companies, so therefore they're the evil guys, I wasn't. I don't know how many others were. There were some tobacco people there, but on the form that you hand in, it had a declaration at the bottom. If you have any affiliations to tobacco companies, and I spoke to a couple of the guys, and because we were standing there for 3.5 hours, you could do nothing but talk to the people that were in the queue with you. And they had their forms, and they declared that they were part of the tobacco industry. They weren't hiding it. So, I don't understand what the problem is. They're just sitting there watching what was going on. But for some reason, this is classed as undermining tobacco control. I don't see how that works. But
I'm confused here. So FCTC says, because of this Article 5.3, we're not having anybody that's got anything to do with tobacco in the place. People like Adam and others turn up, go to the desk, sign in the declaration they say, yes, we're from big tobacco, and they still get a delegate's badge, and they're allowed to go in and sit in the public area where there's, 30 seats?
Yeah, there was 30 passes handed out, yeah, that's all.
So they've put their hands up and said, yes, we're from big tobacco, right, here's your badge, you can go and sit in the public area. And then Deborah and a few others come round and go clickety-click and take everybody's photograph, and then go running back and say, look, there's tobacco people in, there's tobacco people. What?
That's exactly what's happened, yeah, that's exactly what they were doing. Because then, I think it was Vera DaCosta's speech, she mentioned, and she said, there are some amongst us here today, and it was then saying, they're abusing the public badge system by applying for these badges. And so it was like they let the tobacco people in just so that they could then say, look how evil they are, they're coming in and abusing the public system by applying for a badge.
Look, this is bloody craziness. It's like turning up to a nightclub that has a no jeans and trainers policy, and you walk up and the bouncer goes, come in, son, with your Wranglers and your New Balance trainers on, and then bringing the policies in to escort you out and arrest you. This is just utter bloody craziness.
Yeah, it would appear like that. Yeah, definitely. But it was interesting once got in. The thing is, once you get the badge, they did just let you walk around freely. I mean, I walked in a couple of committee rooms where nothing was going on, but where they would be debating later. And they just let you wander around. I was quite amazed. I thought that there would be people sort of watching you all the time, but they didn't. Once you had the badge, they didn't seem bothered. But having said that, just before that had happened, Students for Liberty had turned up a little bit late, and they went up. The way it happened, when you queue, you have to go up and you fill in your form, and they give you, with the form, they give you a little a little plastic card with your number on it. I was number 20. And they turned up, Students of Liberty, and said, hey, we'd like to get a pass. And they said, I'm sorry, we're all out of the badges. We've given out these cards, so you haven't got any more. So, okay. So they thought they wouldn't get in. Next I heard they managed to get a lanyard off of someone, and they tucked it inside of their shirt with no ID badge, and just walked straight past security and into the public area. And they went through three different checkpoints and got in there. And I think I might have sent you a picture of one of them going up with a big sign saying COP7, excuse for 1984 or something like that. But they got in without a badge. They were instantly thrown out once they started protesting, but they got in without a badge. So it was just a total mess. It was very disorganised. It was just all over the place and frankly quite laughable, I have to say.
I think it's... I've just pushed the pictures of the registration desks and the Students for Liberty with their posters up, the one that actually got in. I mean, there's a number of things strike me about this. The first thing is all of those chairs are decorated as if it was a wedding. That's the first thing. I just don't get that at all, because it's patently not a bloody wedding. The second thing is there seems to be 1,000,001 places you can register, and I'm not entirely certain who knows exactly what they are when they get there. But you were saying earlier on there's 1,500 delegates there.
I read that today because they said there's 180 countries and with 3 in each delegation. That's what 540. But I thought there was definitely more than that. So it's obviously the accredited people and people who've got observer status and stuff like that. But there were coach loads of them turning out. Coach after coach after coach, and towards the end, you're getting tired standing there for hours, and you knew that every coach that turned up, they were going to get processed before you. So you think, hold on, there's only like a dozen left. We'll get processed soon. And then another coach turns up. They were rolling in at like 10:30 after the conference started and just going straight up and getting their badges. But all those lines were different areas. So you had some for NGOs. Deborah Arnott registered on the NGOs bit. Sheila Duffy registered in the Europe part. But each of those were for different areas of the world, so they went up. But we were standing in the public line, and there was, like I said, about 30 of us, including, I think, about a dozen Brazilian elected mayors. Actually, there's a good story about them I could tell you, which I've got an update about. But we're standing there, and this line was just not moving. It didn't move for 3.5 hours, but the rest of it, at times, had 15 people there doing absolutely nothing because they were just waiting for delegates to turn up. We had just one guy sitting there with a computer and one camera to take pictures because all the others had to go on this one camera to take pictures. They brought out another camera at one point so they could speed it up a little bit because at one point I think they were sending delegates in without picture on their card because they just couldn't process them fast enough. But they tried to set up this other camera, spent about 10-15 minutes trying to set it up, couldn't make it work, so took it back in the back again and just carried on with the one camera. It was just bizarre stuff.
This is blowing my head away. It is absolutely blowing my head away.
Vape Jam was the nearest I've seen to something that chaotic. Do you remember the big queues of people who bought tickets the night before and they hadn't pre-registered? And there was a massive queue there where they hadn't anticipated beyond. But these people have been doing this for a long time. This is COP7, the 7th one they've done. And apparently these staff that process people are the same ones that do it every time. So I couldn't understand why there was a problem this time. Maybe it was because they just had one camera. But that said, the public line, it seemed to be they were deliberately keeping us there for as long as possible. Now that's fine if they want to just inconvenience all the people who were from tobacco companies. That's fine, but there were people there who were members of the public or, like I said, elected mayors, and they treated them with contempt. I mean, surely the assumption should be, if you've got a public queue, that you might have people who are members of the public in that queue. So if you're an organisation that are treating the public with utter contempt like that because you are either petrified or contemptuous of tobacco companies, you're doing something very, very badly wrong. You can't treat people like that.
Well, no. And more to the point, and this is actually on point, that whole shindig cost over £4 million.
That's just from the Indian government. So
yes, and God knows what else would have been thrown into it by the World Health Organization, the UN and NATO and whoever else puts money into this thing. And you would have thought for that amount of money they would at least be able to get the infrastructure right so that you get people shuttled in and shuttled out and registered and sorted out and you know, sort wheat from chaff or whatever it is they want to do. That's our bloody money. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's our bloody money that they're obviously not using for making the conference work the way it's supposed to, which makes you wonder what they are using it for. I'm not going to say food and drink and enjoying yourself, because I'm not sure enjoying yourself's part of what they do, is it?
Oh, they do, yeah.
Oh, do we know? Do tell.
Yeah.
Were there some parties?
Yeah. There was lots of partying and things like that going on in some hotels, yeah.
And this is organised stuff.
I've seen one particular video of a group of about 6 or 7 of them absolutely off their faces, dancing and screaming and hollering and stuff like that. So they were enjoying that. Yeah, we can't knock that. I can't knock it because I think it's great. They're having fun. But at the end of the day, it's they're doing it on our dollars. And at the same time, then they're going and being complete miserable sods the next day and trying to stop other people from doing things that they want to do. So,
It's beyond belief. It really is beyond belief. What do you make of all of this, Mark, or what you've heard so far?
Well, it kind of strikes me that the public line was kept like that deliberately. Because if I wanted to subvert the public getting in, that's exactly what I would do. And that's probably what they did. One camera, one person going really, really slowly. Yeah, that sounds about right, doesn't it? What the F is Deborah Arnott doing, taking photos of people? What's she going to do with them? Go back and say, look at these 2 people. It's ludicrous, totally ludicrous. I've got some comments from chat, which I'll shove in here. Maxstrom, absolutely shambolic how the media was treated. Rob LFI, we know about the rubbish newspapers publish about e-cigs. Not sure I trust them on any of the subjects now. John Summers says, misconduct in public office, anyone? And he also said, thinking she was being clever and important. That's obviously in relation to Deborah Arnott taking the photos. DJ Reptile was asking, why are they taking pictures? He doesn't follow. So why do we think the pictures were being taken by not only Deborah Arnott, but the people in the front? Why do we think the pictures were being taken? Is there a rogues gallery somewhere where everyone's been now, it's been passed around all these different events? So, like a bit like in Las Vegas where you get caught cheating at cards, your face goes on the database, and then as soon as they pick you up on the CCTV, you're ousted. Do we think that's happening?
I don't know. I couldn't guess. It has happened in the past. There have been people in the past at these things where certain elements in the FCTC have taken pictures of them, and then while they're actually there, have then circulated, newsletters or pamphlets saying, with their face and saying, "Beware, the merchants of death are here, undermining the conference." So that does go on. It's gone on for quite a while. So maybe, I don't know. It just seemed to me, just a gut feeling that we were considered some sort of vermin or something that were just at the back of the room, and these upright, fine, upstanding tobacco controllers could come along just like a freak show or a zoo and just take a picture of these people that are in this little pen, and then go away and tell their mates, "Look at these horrible people." It just that arrogant way of doing things, and the camera just constantly trained on us as if you're being watched. It was just that sort of thing. I mean, it's presumably designed to intimidate. I don't know, but I just found it rather curious. It was quite an experience.
Yeah, it does sound like they were just putting intimidation on intimidation on intimidation. Absolutely ludicrous. Mr. Dorn.
Well, I was just going to say, this thought has just occurred to me. I did notice over in the States, over the recent shenanigans that's been going on over there, which I don't want to get into, but apparently they have got lip readers. And these people sit with telescopes and binoculars and really good video cameras tuned in on folks to read their lips. And there are people who can, I mean, I read lips. I think everybody knows I'm deaf in one lug and nearly deaf in the other, and I've been reading lips for years. But there are people that are really, really good at it. I get a gist and that's about it. But there are folks that can actually read the lips with 99% accuracy. And I just wonder if the video camera's on there permanently so they can even overhear whispered conversations without shoving a microphone in, because they are that paranoid, are they not, Dick?
I think they are. It's a good theory. I hadn't thought of it like that. Yeah, definitely. I took a couple of pictures of the guy taking video of us. So, but yeah, you never know. I was going to say, when you were just saying that, I was thinking, don't say anything like this because you'll give them ideas. You know, if they hadn't thought of it already, if they saw this, they might think that's a good idea. Maybe we can do that next time. I don't know.
I think they're that bloody paranoid. They've been doing it for years, man. I mean, they've already got this Article 5.3, and I understand that once everybody'd been kicked out, they were even massaging that to try and make it even tighter, so that, you know, you're not allowed to go into a room where somebody who's ever smoked a cigarette has farted. Something like that. It's misquoted and misused so bloody often, is that 5.3. Anyway, right. So we've got to the point where the public was going to be kicked out. How was this announced?
It came out of the blue. It was just a surprise. You know, everyone's there thinking we're going to get through a whole day, and apparently 5 minutes before then, they just decided they were going to do this thing. Now, the way it works is by consensus. So when Faith Goldie and Lauren Southern made a big thing of it, they're right to make a big thing of it, but they said not a single country voted against this. But that's because there are no votes at COP7. Everything's meant to work on consensus. So because this had been decided in the past, 2009 was the first time they kicked the public out. This was something that they just said, this is what we're going to do. Has anyone got any objections? And it's almost like you're not supposed to object, so no one did. So there wasn't actually a vote. It wasn't technically that no country, voted against this, because they don't have votes. It's just because everyone goes along with it. I don't see how that works as a process myself. I still find it confusing. Like I said, I was talking on Tuesday to someone about this, who knows about all these things and how they work, and they were explaining that it's all done by consensus. It just seems baffling to me that how, for example, the proposal on e-cigarettes was something that they had to just do a load of horse trading about, and then come to something where no one would find too much in it to object to, which is why the prohibit thing stayed in, because there were a lot of countries who wanted to protect their right to prohibit e-cigarettes, so that had to stay in. It's just the way they work. It's a consensus thing, and it was just brought up 5 minutes before the end of the first day, and said we're going to do this, and no one felt strongly enough to object to it, so it just went through. But then this is what they've been doing in the lead up to it. You might have read the article saying they want to get rid of anyone who's not they want to get rid of anyone in any delegation that has anything to do with tobacco. So for example, you've got places like China where the industry is nationalized, so they're saying, well, you can bring people along, but even though you've got a nationalized industry, government runs the tobacco industry in China, you can't have anyone in that side of your government. It only has to be health people. So if you get rid of anyone who deals in any side of that trade or that business, then you're going to get people who think, well, that's not a problem, we're not too worried about that. And this is what they've engineered over years and over successive COP conferences. They've engineered a position where they can get people who only agree with them. So that's how it's going to happen.
Well, that's part and parcel of because as you may recall, at GFN we were talking about trying to get observer status for whether it was NNA or whether it was INCO or whatever. We were talking about trying to get observer status to COP7 and probably for COP8 as well. But when you do that, you've got to sign a declaration that says, in no uncertain terms, that you are only there because you support everything that FCTC stands for, that you will uphold all of their articles, you'll only promote what they say, you can't be there and hold an opposing view. They basically kick anybody out that's got an opposing view. And obviously, the same's happened this. They don't trust the public to make their own minds up. It's completely ridiculous. Totally and utterly ridiculous. However, let's move it on into days 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, because even though Big Tobacco was thrown out, all the media was thrown out, and Dick was thrown out, well, you still got information, didn't you?
Well, yeah, but that's the laughable thing about it. They're throwing people out, but like I said, you've got 1,500 delegates there, and leaks are going to happen. You can never control 1,500 people. There's always going to be someone who says something to the wrong person, or sends something out to somewhere, and so no matter what was happening, it was being found out. There was plenty of people there who were interested, and when you're interested, you're going to find the info out. Leaks will happen. You can't stop 1,500 people, no matter how much vetting you put through all these. But especially if you think about it, you're dealing with some, and this is not to be unkind to developing nations. You're talking to some nations where they're not sophisticated or advanced as we are, and you've got some very low grade people there who are just leaking information because they're maybe not as politically astute as other people. So you're always going to get the leaks, and these leaks were coming out. So whenever decisions were being made, the leaks were finding their way out, and they were finding their way out very easily. So I don't see why they should just exclude everyone when the leaks are going to happen anyway. You might as well just let people in there and observe what's going on. That transparency in that respect would make it look much more like you're doing something for the common good or for the good of the public. But by hiding it all away and then the leaks come out anyway, it just makes them look terrible. I don't think I explained that very well, but you understand, I think, what I'm saying.
Yeah. I've got it totally. And I'm seeing chat's gone crackers. Marco, what are you saying?
Sorry, I was muted. There's been a bit of conversation about what COP7 was, which chat have very kindly explained. Leanne Hall said a bit earlier on, like a page ago, that they're afraid of everything but themselves. There's also some comments about it being a dictatorship echo chamber. Now, I seem to remember there was this little German chap with a funny moustache in the 30s and 40s that didn't like people who didn't agree with him as well. Just my point of view.
Not controversial at all there, Marco.
No.
Is it Moore's law that applies?
I'm sitting on the fence, obviously. But, it is all about, if you don't, like Abby's just explained about having to agree to everything to be, what was it you said?
Observer status.
Observer status. So you had to agree with everything that it was all about before you could be an observer. What utter bullshit. At the end of the day, they don't want anybody's opinion but their own. They've got their own agenda. Whatever that is, it's obviously not anything to do with bloody healthcare. If it was, they'd have sorted out Ebola a hell of a lot quicker. And instead of wasting time and wasting money, all this money on lavish parties, by the sounds of it, in India, which is being paid for by, everybody. At the end of the day, they're not there to have parties. They're there for a conference, and not to have any public or any media allowed. In the end, is absolutely just craziness and laughable and pathetic, in my humble opinion. Being a vapor of nearly 5 years, who has not been using lit tobacco for the same amount of time. Go figure.
Well, It makes my blood boil. It really does make my blood boil, all of this. Because the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care. I absolutely do not care what anybody else does with their body. I might think they're being silly. I might think they're complete and total and utter arseholes. But that doesn't matter. It's their body. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. And, you know, examples abound. There are all kinds of things that I see people do. This split tongue thing, getting horns grafted onto your head. The whole, I think there's a thing called scarifying, where somebody draws a picture by scarring you, by cutting you down your arms and on your face and stuff like that. Now, that's nothing I would ever do. I'd kind of draw the line at piercing my ears, and that's it, really. A tattoo maybe, but I wouldn't go in for all of this other stuff. But if folks want to do that, I'm good with it. Let them get on with it. It's fine. It's their body, it's their choice. They can do what they want. It's the same as these daft buggers that go loping out of aeroplanes at 20,000 feet and get that shape on, and, you know, if they remember, they pull the cord and then float down on an umbrella. Fat lad. No real interest in that. Skiing, same thing. There's knee breaks. You know what I'm saying? You've got 2 slices of wood strapped onto your feet and you go down a mountain like that, and then that's, you know, knee breaks. I'm not interested in stuff like that. And when it comes to everything else that people do, it's up to them. Isn't it, Mr. Kitson? You're muted, mate. He's muted. Mr. Kitson's joined us, but he's muted, so I'll put the camera back on, mate. He sorts himself out. Yes.
I've unmuted him.
Oh, you had him muted, did you?
No, I've unmuted him now.
Are you there, Dave? Dave, are you there?
What about now?
Yes, we've got you now, Mr. Kitson. Yeah, right.
I just had to grab the mic. Sorry, I'm using the wireless thing. Yes. What was the question?
I was just talking about what people do to their own bodies is entirely up to them.
Yes, totally agree. Sorry, something funny is going on screen there.
I think Dick's gone for a wee.
Yes. Well, I totally agree with you. I did hear what you were saying, and yeah, it comes back to the same thing again, doesn't it? It's about freedom of choice. And how often does that become a topic while we're talking about e-cigs? You know,
It's all the time, isn't it?
it's just like, you know, I mean, simple message from me is piss off and leave us alone.
I think that was how I was going to sum up at the end of the night.
It's nobody's business. Just go away, leave me alone, let me do what I want to do. I'm not harming anybody else. Sod off.
Well, quite. Actually, I was going to... This was a point. For those of you that don't know, Dave's a Damned fan, aren't you?
I am. For my sins.
Over the weekend, you were at a Damned Do, were you not?
I was quite late as well. So.
And I saw as well that you'd managed to grab some video.
Yes, I did. They let me in with a camera, the mad buggers.
And this was at their sound check and what have you. Now, I noticed from the video that you put up on Facebook that there was an awful lot of mist and vapour around in the air, was there not?
There certainly was, and it wasn't me, honest Gov.
Well, no, I know it wasn't, because I could see the machines at either side.
It was on the side of the stage, the machine, yeah.
Yes. Now, just so everybody knows, and I hope that somebody from the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control is watching, as has been mentioned in chat. I really hope you are watching, because listen to this. The stuff that's in this bottle here, doesn't matter what it's called, is composed primarily of glycerols. That's glycerine, propylene glycol, and there may well be others. Try whatever it's called, I can't remember now. Exactly the same stuff that was in the machines that Dave was filming over the weekend at the Damned concert.
Absolutely, and I had that conversation when just before the gig started. The place was absolutely rammed, and we'd done this VIP thing, so I was right at the front against the barrier, right? And I was talking to this couple next to me, and I had the little Tesla stealth thing, and I wasn't being particularly careful. You know, you can't hide it if somebody's there. And even before the show started, the vapor is coming out of the smoke machine. And they looked at me and they said, "Oh, you're allowed to do that in there?" I said, "Well, that is." And we got into a conversation, and I said, "Actually," they said, "Is it the same stuff?" And I said, "It's exactly the same stuff, except mine's pharmaceutically produced, and that isn't."
Oh, yes, that's exactly right. I just need to point out, for the benefit of those that can't say chat at the moment, that Gerry Stimson's in the room as well.
Did you get it?
Can I chime in there? Dave? Because
yeah.
I can read what Gerry put a while ago, because it's gone up the screen now.
Go on then.
He said, UK government has just given £15 million to FCTC. We need to campaign to link that donation, conditional reform of who FCTC Secretariat, and make FCTC transparent, open to public, and webcast proceedings for starters. And he's just put in, who and FCTC is short of money, so potential for pressure. Need to start with paramilitary questions about how UK aid money is spent. Good Brexit question.
What, was that parliamentary or paramilitary?
Parliamentary.
Oh, right, just checking.
Carry on.
I'm just going to do this off the cuff and off the hoof here. Gerry, if you want to come in, I'll send you the link. You can come in, get up onto the hangout, because I think you need to. I think you need to appeal to people.
I've got something I have to say about that, Dave.
Go on then.
I was talking to Jeff Steyer in India, and he did say I could mention this, so I feel like I can say he's trying to talk, or he's planning to try and talk to the American government somehow. His connections over there, and suggest exactly that, to say, look, this conference COP7 is financed by donations from governments all over the world, and he wants to get something in the American rules, like that if taxpayers' money from America goes towards a conference, then it must come with a proviso that the media are entitled to be there for the whole thing. Otherwise, we'll have our money back, thank you very much. And he says he thinks he's got a good chance of success of getting that in. That if the US government is giving money to the WHO, for example, for COP7, it comes with condition that the press is allowed free rein when they're there to report on it. And that's a condition of giving the money over. And if they have to agree with that, and then they can have the money. Once they've got the money, if they then say the press is going to be kicked out, then obviously they're going to have to repay that money. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. If the government is giving this money to the FCTC or to the WHO, any government, let alone the British government, then they should be putting conditions on it and saying, we expect that our citizens should be allowed to attend this thing because they paid for it, and we expect the media to be allowed to report it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I'm kind of hoping Gerry is going to come on board. I can't guarantee it, but Gerry, I've tweeted you the link. Just click on it. It's a hangout like we usually use for NNA board meetings. Please do come and join us, because I think it would be very useful for everybody. This whole notion, actually, of making donations conditional upon certain things, I think is a damn good one. I'm not sure whether we actually have got real friends in public health, if you follow me drift. I'm not sure that there are people up at the top of all of this that are actually what you would call really friends and properly pro-vaping, and I do worry about that, and that's something we might want to have a look at a little bit further down the road. But it does make me wonder. I really want to hear what Dave and Marco have got to say on this about conditional donations and stuff. Start with Marco.
Yes, hello. Well, before I say that, Joe's replied he's going to come on another time when he's developed a cunning plan.
Okay.
Just put that into chat.
That's fine. That's fine. I don't want to pressure you, Gerry, and God knows we'll be talking about it. That much I can guarantee. That's fine. Okay, so cunning plan, Gerry Stimson. We'll get the ball rolling. Okay, Marco. Now you.
I was actually kind of disjointed because I was trying to get into something else to send the message to Gerry, and hadn't realised I'd left myself unmuted. But there you go. What was the question?
What's your thinking about conditional donations from nation states like the UK that has just sparked 15 million over 5 years. That's 3 million a year, which frankly I think would be better used promoting e-cigs in the UK. If we're going to be an experiment, let's be a proper one. Yeah, do the right thing, David. Press the right button. If we're going to give 15 million to FCTC, I'd rather that 15 million stayed in the UK and got used for the kind of campaign that Granny Louise Ross, ran in Leicester with her street side posters and what have you. With 3 million, we would get a lot of telly coverage and stuff like that every year, and that would go a long way towards addressing the misinformation that the World Health Organization's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control has inflicted upon the world. And I think that yes, we should make it conditional, but I want to know what you think, Marco.
I think they should, let's talk about the 15 million, okay? So the 15 million should be conditional, and that is, some of it goes to the FCTC to talk about tobacco, and then the rest of it goes to promoting vaping, studies on vaping, helping people switch to a healthier lifestyle, as the RCP have said, as PHE have said, who take no reference at all to the RCP or the PHE. Now, why are we then giving all this money to an organisation that we have accountability? They've got accountability to us. They're not transparent. So part of the conditional donation should be complete transparency and none of this bullshit that they've been doing.
Well, if I can just chime in there, and people that are watching live and watching recorded, I'm sorry about the volumes jumping around the place. I've tried to be a bit clever with the way this all works, and I've managed to make a complete bollock of it. But never mind. I know you can hear me now, so let's kind of go from there. I personally don't think the FCTC needs any more money in order to be able to commission studies, because history has proven that, one, they don't commission studies. All they commission is meta studies, meta analyses. And the second thing is the people that they get to do this are people like Stanton Glantz. And I'm sorry, I don't want to fill that fat fuck's belly any more than it already is, because he does nothing but spout bloody lies. Take me to court, Glantz. I've just, you might think, libelled you. But it's true what I say. So no, I don't think they should get any money to spend on the kind of shite that they produce and the kind of rubbish that they produce in their briefing papers. In fact, I think the UK, with its 15 million, ought to say, right, we'll give you the first 3 million, and if you don't take notice of what the RCP has said and promulgate it, if you don't take notice of what PHE has said and promulgate it, not only will you not get any more, but we want 6 million back off you because you're a set of lying fuckwits. Floor's open.
Right.
Now sit on the fence, why don't you?
I think you're overcomplicating it, right? If I was giving somebody 15 million quid, right, it's bizarre that they might think that I might not be told what they're bloody doing with it. Right. So in terms of conditions, the first condition I'd have is tell us what you're doing. And the second one I'd have is leave vaping out of it. That's not what it was for. Simple as that. Absolutely as simple as that.
There is that, but
Bugger all to do with their brief, has it?
there is that. I think I was speaking to Dave before this started about a group called Corporate Accountability International, and I think it's probably a good time to bring that one in. This was something I found out on Tuesday night. I thought I knew about these conferences. I thought I knew the way they worked, but I was speaking to someone on Tuesday night who was talking about some of the factions that play out. Someone who's been to a lot of these conferences and understands inside out and backwards how they work. And this came as a real shock. So you kept mentioning corporate accountability. And when they'd finished, I said, when you say corporate accountability, is this just your description of them, or is this a definition? And the reply was, no, they are called corporate accountability. They are a faction within the FCTC. They are not about public health. They are anti-corporate. That's their entire role. They're just there because they hate corporations. They hate big business. And apparently these people have a lot of power within the FCTC. So, you know, I'd said to her before, you know, I've noticed some public health people seem interested in public health. Other ones just seem to just hate businesses. But this isn't something that's just a vague individual thing for these people. These are purely defined, or definitely defined roles within the FCTC. You have, for example, the FCA, who are mostly interested in public health, and you have the corporate accountability people who just hate businesses. And apparently they're constantly fighting each other. This is within the FCTC. When I asked, I went off just now to just print this off because I wanted to quote a few things. When I asked about this and said, you know, just what role do corporate accountability have within the FCTC? The reply is CIA is responsible for everything at COPs. They are the guys that got press and public locked out originally in 2009. They wander around and talk to delegates and influence them, write their positions and sometimes talk for them. If CAI were not around, there would be no problem. They strongly influence WHO, FCTC and COP, and have been around since the beginning in 1999. Now, if you look at the delegates that were there, these people are there. When we heard about people being shadowed because they were saying the wrong things or objecting to the e-cig regulations about prohibition, those were the guys that did it. When there were people having documents withheld because they had the wrong position, corporate accountability were the people who were doing it. These are like the enforcers of the FCTC. And there are probably lots of very real people in the WHO and in the FCTC who are interested in public health, but they have been strong-armed by these anti-corporate types who just don't like big business. There was another anecdote, a bloke called Brian Hirsch a few years ago representing corporate accountability. He claimed to be a journalist, but observing international treaty making, but he moved from person to person in the public gallery, asking their identity and why they were present. Of course, everyone in tobacco companies told the truth, so then he went running off to the top table and said, there you go, they're undermining our conference. And this is what these people are there for. They're just anti-corporate. It's not just tobacco. They're anti-corporate lots of things. I think I sent you pictures of the badges they were giving out this year. There's 2 badges there. Those were the ones that are being given out this year. And they are only interested in bashing businesses. They're not interested in public health.
Yes,
and that's probably the cancer at the heart of the FCTC and the reason why all this is happening. And it's probably about time they got exposed. And I'm just shocked that I'd never heard of them before. It sounds tinfoil hat stuff, but this is actually happening. And I think if you spoke to Deborah Arnott, she would probably recognise it. You know, there are people in there who are fighting on our side, but are just constantly met by this bunch of enforcers called corporate accountability, who are just there saying, no, we want it our way. And that's apparently been going on for a long time.
There are some UK people involved in it as well. One that goes by the name of Anna Gilmore, you'll be surprised to hear.
Yeah.
And I believe Gerard Hastings was also a member of CAI. And there are others as well. And it's probably going to be a little job somebody might take on to find out who the rest of the UK people are that are part of CAI. Because it's my view, at least, that any anti-corporatism needs to be gotten out of there. If this is supposed to be about health, and Lord knows it's supposed to be about health, then there's absolutely no reason why anything else should be taken into account. Dave Kitson's right in what he says. It shouldn't be about e-cigs. I don't think it should be about smoking either, frankly, but that's just the libertarian in me coming out. But it shouldn't be about e-cigs. They shouldn't be looking at e-cigs. E-cigs have got nothing to do with it. It's not tobacco. And the whole thing is the framework convention on tobacco control. It's not on e-cig control, tobacco control. It's about time these buggers learned that. What do you make of that, Dave?
It's right. It doesn't shock me. I didn't know any of that, so thanks very much to Dick for pointing that out. It doesn't shock me at all. Just on the subject there of whether e-cigs should be included or not. you can take it one or two ways, can't you? Yeah. The FCTC is supposed to include looking at THR, tobacco harm reduction strategies, right? Yeah. Just take it at face value, right? They've decided, rightly or wrongly, that e-cigarettes don't qualify for that. Okay, they don't reduce harm. That's the assumption they've come to. So move on. You know, that I'd take that at this stage. I again, you know, the little bit of libertarian in me, because I am basically a fascist, right? The little bit of libertarian in me does say, you know, that they shouldn't be bothering with the tobacco bit at all. But there is a distinction you can make between the two that's quite clear. They were set up to look at tobacco, you know, and governments, rightly or wrongly, have paid into it and supported it to that end. E-cigs is different. I mean, because, like I say, I agree with you. I think that's a waste of money, personally. But e-cigs, quite clearly, is not part of it. So, yeah, I just repeat what I said. Just piss off, leave us alone.
Well, you know, if they would do that, it wouldn't be so bad. But, and Dick will put me right if I'm wrong here, I believe that one of their top bods, one of their top representatives, has put out a press release saying that e-cigs, not only do they not aid people in quitting, they keep people smoking. Isn't that right?
I haven't seen that one, but it wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't shock me either, frankly. It's the kind of shit you'd expect. But you know, we should, as with a purely e-cig advocate's hat on, we should be rejoicing in that and saying, great, they'll fuck off and stop bothering us now. But they don't.
How I wish that was the case. I really do wish that was the case. Because, you know, if I'm to be honest, we've been doing this for 6 years now, Dave, haven't we? Coming up? Vapor Trails?
February 2011.
So it's 6 years in February we've been doing
that. Yeah, that's right, yeah.
We've been slagged off by a lot of people. We're getting slagged off by people now who are saying that advocacy is a waste of time and all the rest of it. It's funny.
Absolutely.
It's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, TPD's not going to affect us. I don't know whether anybody saw the announcements from Bullet CGs earlier. They listed in their Facebook group all the lines that they'll be dropping from November 19th. You'll no longer be able to buy those juices with nicotine in it. So, and it was a long list for a small company, trust me. They've just had to pick a few core flavours that they can go with, and that's all that they'll be selling come November the 20th. So those people who are saying it won't affect anything, wake up, smell the coffee.
Oh, these folks are not just saying that it won't affect anything. They're actively opposing what we've been doing for the last 5.5, 6 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I can understand some of the companies that have opposed us in bringing a lot of this stuff to light because they're cashing on the TPD, right?
Yes.
They're a bit smarter than the others. They had a bit more money in the bank, however you look at it, and they've positioned themselves to take advantage of it, and they're pretty much going to clean up when everything comes into full force. But isn't it funny that it's rarely those companies that most of the vapors I meet want to buy from? You want the boutique companies, you want the little specialists, and they're the ones, unfortunately, that are going to suffer the most.
Well, you've just got to look what's happened in the States and what TW's announced this week, which I've just been reminded.
I was going to say that was a shocker, but it was inevitable, really, wasn't it? But there's the first big boy, the first big player coming out to say, look, this is what it's going to be, and they're going to shut the doors.
Well, it was a wise decision, business-wise, wasn't it? I mean, I run a business. If I saw that happen, I'd think, well, I'm closing down now. I'm not going to.
Same here. Nobody's going to run a business at a loss. You know, only an idiot. Only people like Trump.
Fraser did say that would happen, though, when he spoke to Dave at Vapor Expo 2 in May. Sat on the sofas, he did say that it was likely that if it all went Pete Tong in the States, it would be the end of TW's business over there, and it is happening.
And I remember some of the reactions when he said that, Marco. People were saying, nah, it's just posturing, it's just for effect. well, guess what, guys? It isn't. It's real.
People have been in denial for the past 5 years that the TPD is not going to affect them. It's okay. I can DIY. I'll get a load of nick. I'm going to buy pure nick from China. All that kind of stuff. Now we're seeing companies either drastically reducing their lines because they simply can't afford to keep as many lines on, or they're going to go completely.
Well,
that's the reality.
If I can just dive in on TW, going back, oh Lord, it must be 2010, I suppose, 2010, 2011. They spent a shed load of money in the States.
They certainly did.
Opposing the idiocy that was coming out of there in terms of what was allowed in and what wasn't. They fund, it was over 100,000.
I remember a figure of 600,000, which I think came from Jason. He reckoned they'd spent $600,000 fighting the FDA back then.
Yes, it's something like that. It's a big amount of money that they spent fighting the FDA to try and make sure that people in the States were going to be able to get hold of. All right, it was TW product, but it wasn't just TW that they were fighting for. In fact, they paved the way for every brick and mortar store that there is in the USA now. And the thanks that they've had for doing that have been few and far between, and you still get people railing against them. They fought, they fight, and they keep on fighting, and they're no longer going to be able to fight in the US because the amount of money that's going to be required to get a product through all of the shit and shenanigans that you've got to go through over there, they just can't afford to do it. As big as they are, they can't afford to do it in the USA. So they're going to be concentrating their actions in the EU, and they are fighting the TPD. They are fighting for what's right. And I think people need to know that. I really do. I'll shut up now and let everybody else talk.
I think it's fair.
It's also worth pointing out at this point that America's going through much worse than we are. But what I found last week about what's happening in India and places like that is quite appalling. I mean, you saw some of them interviews. I don't know if you noticed that the immediate aftermath of COP7 was India announcing that they will be prohibiting e-cigs. Now, that was part of, when the negotiations were going on, there was this group of 4 countries, India, Thailand, Nigeria and Kenya, who were trying their hardest to get the COP7 to agree prohibiting e-cigs entirely. So they're obviously of that mindset. So when COP7 has finished and it's come up with something that allows all options, this was great. India immediately said, I think I've got a quote here somewhere, it immediately said it in an article that was published today, India is likely to opt for complete prohibition of e-cigarettes as there are enough tobacco products in the market already. And this is the fallout that we're going to get from COP7 because the way it's happened. India has taken that and thought, great. They had to have a compromise apparently to protect the right of some countries to want to prohibit it, because some countries just want to prohibit. They didn't want to have something that said prohibition's not on the table. I heard, I don't know how true it is, but I understand it's reliable, that there was a delegation of a few countries that were trying to get the word prohibit taken out of the wording entirely, and they were looking for backing, and the UK and EU delegations just went AWOL and disappeared. Now, I don't know why that is, but that seems pretty shameful to me because the word prohibit should have been taken out entirely, so to stop these countries doing it, so that it's not an option. Because what's happened, because the option to prohibit is still in there, immediately India has gone, and India was one of the ones who wanted everyone to have to prohibit them. India has immediately said they're going to prohibit e-cigs because there are too many tobacco products on the market already, which is interesting because I did watch the rerun of last week's show. I couldn't watch it; it was in the middle of the night in India. But I watched the rerun the next day, and I just wanted to mention something because a few people in chat, apparently from what what you'd said, had been saying about big tobacco in India. They're forcing everyone's hand. But I just want to mention what I found out from talking to Indian people about how the tobacco industry works over there, because it's completely different to the way it works, how we'd understand it. In India, you have the tobacco market is apparently controlled by the government, and that's not like it's nationalised. It's independent companies that run it, but they have to be India owned. So you can't sell cigarettes in India unless you run an Indian owned company. And the government will strictly regulate who's allowed to sell e-cigarettes. So, for example, British tobacco companies can sell their products in India, but only by selling to an Indian company to sell them. But that's normal cigarettes. You also have a whole load of other tobacco products, such as biddies, which were described to me as very cheap, very high nicotine and very toxic tobacco, which is mostly smoked by poor people, and pan, which is the chewing tobacco, which is full of all sorts of crap in it. Now, apparently, biddies are completely tax-free. And when I asked, well, why are they tax-free if they're much more dangerous than normal tobacco cigarettes? And I was told, well, because the people who run the biddy companies are in the Parliament building, because they're run by the companies run by MPs. So they're taxing tobacco cigarettes, but the ones that we would recognise. But they're not taxing these biddies. And the whole thing is just a completely different world over there. So when India wants to prohibit e-cigs, you've got a whole load of different levels of tobacco industry that are behind it, but they're not multinational ones. They're Indian-owned ones, and they're just local to India because they have to be Indian-owned. And the biddy manufacturers are people who are in the Parliament. So that's probably why India is so set against getting rid of e-cigs. They don't want them around. When I spoke to the Indian vapors, the first one I spoke to, a young guy, he's in his 20s, and I said to him about these things, and he said, well, I don't vape outside because if the police see you vaping, they'll arrest you. And I said, is there a law against vaping? He said, no, there's no law. It's just that they think you're using drugs in them because they've never seen them. I was over there, and apart from the room where I met these guys at this vape centre, and there was about 15, 20 of them, they were the only vapors I saw anywhere in Delhi while I was there. And Delhi's a pretty packed place. You see a lot of people. I'll just tell you one. I don't want to hog everything, but I came out of the hotel at the airport, and was waiting for a taxi. And there was a guy there from the hotel I was at because they'd messed up the car. And they stood there, and they'd said we'll wait inside. I said I want to wait outside because I wanted to vape. And I just had this one, just a low wattage device. And he looked. He said, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, it's an e-cigarette. You use it, but you use it to replace smoking." And so I had to show how it worked. I explained how it works, and then I showed it. And I did a draw, with a small little cloud like that. And the guy literally stepped back in amazement with his eyes wide open, as if he'd just seen a dragon or something. He'd never seen anything like this before. And then a colleague of his turned up with my bags and everything, and he explained something to him in Indian, and I did it again, and he was just equally shocked. And they both said they have never even heard of e-cigarettes, let alone even seen them. So they're totally unknown in India, even though apparently, according to these guys, there's something like 100,000 vapors, but they have to stay on the ground. They have to stay hidden because...
Yeah, that's not a big percentage in India, I guess, is it?
No, exactly, yeah. Is it 1 billion people or something in population? But they've got 100,000 vapors, but they all have to stay quiet. And because the police are so... Well, we saw with the tobacco farmers how the police got involved, and, they're not the most salubrious of people. They have to make sure they stay hidden because they can't go out and vape in public for fear of arrest. Even though there's no law against it, they can just get arrested at a whim because the police don't like it. So when we talk about some of the regulations we've got, and we should rightly fight against them, it's worth remembering that these guys over there in the subcontinent, in the Philippines and places like that, have immense problems compared to us. And meeting them and speaking to them and seeing how they're going about it, and it was really inspiring to see that they're actually trying to fight for this thing because they know it's the right thing to do. And it was great meeting them. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that one in there. It just seemed a right time to put it in.
No, I really appreciate that. That's an interesting sort of oversight into what makes it tick. And I guess the way you were talking there about the way that this government people, if not government, are controlling the tobacco trade. The FCTC is not going to criticise because it's biting the hand that feeds to a large extent. Yeah, so it's a perfect little, horrible little circle, isn't it? Circle jerk, isn't it?
I don't know what they did about BDs. I don't know if they mentioned them, but I didn't hear any mention of them. But they talk about tobacco cigarettes and they talk about transnational corporations. But in India, that's not the case. It's a completely different market. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
Not transnational. They're based in India. They have to be because the government won't let them sell cigarettes unless they're Indian owned. And biddies are only sold in India, as far as I know. They might be sold in Pakistan or somewhere like that, but they're only sold in local areas. But they seem to be untouched. They're not even taxed, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, I remember going back years. I worked with an Indian fella, and he came back and he brought back huge amounts of biddies, and I had a whole pack of them. There must have been 200 or 300 in them, and they cost pence. God awful when you first start using them, but they're actually relatively tasty back in the day. But I've got a question, Dick, about nicotine, like NRT. Now, I was watching a lot of Lauren Southern stuff over the past couple of days. On the Rebel on YouTube, and I've got a link I'll put into chat. But she was at a side conference, and it was all about women. It was all about gender and smoking, and she asked a question about flavourings, and it was specifically apricot, as she says it, and chocolate. And a lot of women have stopped using lit tobacco, and they're using the flavours. And how do they feel about that? And she got a really curt response from a lady. I can't remember what her name was. But she was specifically saying that she doesn't like the idea of nicotine, not e-cigs specifically, but it was nicotine. So what was the feeling over there about NRT and nicotine replacement therapy?
Well, this is the thing. Again, in this discussion I had on Tuesday night, it seems that they get away scot-free from the corporate accountability people because they've sponsored so many conferences in the past. I was told about the other conference, the World Conference on Tobacco or Health, which has been sponsored by pharmaceutical industries for years. And one notable anecdote I was told was one time and there was a big wall, and it was the Marlborough country imagery all the way across this massive wall, but instead of Marlborough country, it was called Nicorette country, and GlaxoSmithKline Beecham were handing out PowerPoint, or handing out memory sticks, saying, "Here you go. Here's a whole load of science, and here's how you can fight to get regulations against tobacco." So there they are, actively going in, sponsoring conferences, and telling them how to attack businesses and how to attack government to get the regulations to get rid of tobacco. They are actively on side with them. So the corporate accountability people are quite happy with them guys for some weird reason. They don't seem to. They seem to have a blind spot when it comes to pharmaceutical companies. So they don't seem to have a problem with NRT. So but like you said, it's exactly the same thing. It's still nicotine. I mean, I must say, just on the subject of Lauren Southern and Faith Goldie, Dave, I saw your tweet on Saturday with Liam and Paul Barn saying that you had a guest when they asked if you're going to invite Faith Goldie and Lauren Southern. So I hope they're not too disappointed that your guest was just me.
There's no just about it. I mean, both Faith and Lauren are still in India.
You'll get them when they come back.
Well, try. We'll see what happens. Marco's the lad for that. He's great at schmoozing people to come on, aren't you, Marco?
But what Marco said is true. This woman seemed to have no clue whatsoever, did she? She didn't have any clue about e-cigarettes, but she also didn't seem to have any clue about the FCT's own processes.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm going to put the link in to that channel so people can have a look in chat and look. There's quite a few videos that they've done on the Rebel, all very good stuff. And I will touch base if you like, Dave, and see if I can get Lauren on.
Get them both on if we can.
Yeah.
The thing about this, I sat and listened to it, and my jaw dropped and hit the deck when this Patricia woman, I think she's called, said in a quite strange accent that they didn't want harm-reduced products at all. They don't want harm-reduced products. They don't want a safer way of using nicotine. They just want people to quit. The bit that she missed out was or die. And that's the level that we're at here. And this is why I'm heartened by INCO and heartened by the fact that post COP7 there are more countries and more vapor organisations joining INCO every day, and that's the way it should be. Now, I tweeted earlier on in the week that I wanted to see 1,000 people following INCO on Twitter. That's now passed. By the 1st of December, I'd like to see that at 20,000 people. And then by the 1st of next year, that should be 500,000 people following INCO on Twitter. It should be every vapor worldwide. And they should all be telling their vape organisations, their consumer vaping organisations, to get into INCO and let's get this worldwide. Because if we don't, the bastards are going to crush us. They're working on it. And they won't stop until they're successful. All of these other channels that saying, you know, advocacy's a waste of time, can just go and fuck themselves right off, because if we've got no advocacy, we've got no vaping, and INCO is there to bring it all together worldwide. It's a worldwide movement and it needs to be. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Of course you're right. Absolutely right. You know, we're running out of last chances here. If people just want to sit on their asses and do nothing and watch it all disappear, you know, people have got to do something.
Well, it's exactly right, Dave. I mean, look, we've done the European thing, we've done the UK thing. There's people that have been involved in that. We've been involved in that. We started a lot of that. Let's be honest. I hate blowing our own trumpets, but we did. We've organised all kinds of stuff. There's things happening, thankfully, in New Zealand that's going to take Australia with it by the looks of things. America, though, screwed. And we've got to all band together. I tell you what really gets to me, what really annoys me, is the fighting within the cause, if you like, where you've got people who mouth to lung only constantly bad-mouthing direct to lung, and people who direct to lung constantly bad-mouthing mouth to lung, and people who want to advocate being bad-mouthed by people who just want to do hand checks, and people who advocate bad-mouthing people who just want to do hand checks. Look, I've said this 1,000 times and I'm going to keep on saying it till I'm blue in the face. I don't care whether you're mouth to lung, direct to lung, sub-ohm, plus ohm, high voltage, low voltage, high temperature, low temperature. I don't care whether you like blueberry, whether you like bilberry, whether you like no-berry, whether you vape flavourless. I don't care. If you vape, you're a vapor. We're all vapors together. We need all to be together. We need to all fight the FCTC and the ants together. When will people realise? If we are fractured, we lose. United, we stand. Divided, we're fucked.
That's a nice modern twist on an old saying there, Dave. Well done, mate. I think this whole idea of people, like, you know, sort of falling out about how they vape and stuff like that, and the whole concept is lost on me. It really is. Have people got nothing more interesting to do with their lives than worry about what other people vape? Except menthol vapors. They can all piss off as well.
Oh, yes, I agree with that one, Dave. Menthol vapors could piss off, yes.
I like a bit of menthol now and again. Yeah.
Well, piss off then, Marco.
Yeah, I could have
There's
guessed.
no wrong with a bit of menthol.
Could have guessed. He's out the closet now.
Bit of menthol, bit of fire and ice. if it's got flavour on it, I'll give it a go. Why not?
You are talking e-cigs, aren't you?
I'm talking e-cigs, obviously. Yeah.
That's a philosophy for life, there is, Marco. You stick with it, pal.
What he's basically saying is, if it tastes nice, he'll put it in his mouth.
And vape it, yes. Before you lower the tone even further, the Daves.
It was he.
What's it, cheeky bugger? I've got the knobs. I can decide who says what. Hey, man, it's the way it works. It's the way it works. So, right, look, let's kind of go for the last 10 minutes here, because I have got to say again, I've got to express my thanks for what Dick did for us. to get us all of that video and for actually being there on the ground. You're a braver
Here,
man than
here,
I am,
yeah.
Governor Dean.
Nice one, Dick.
10 minutes. What do you want to see happen as a result of COP7?
I could say something positive.
Go on, then.
Well, you know, the fact that we dodged this bullet with these countries trying to go in and try and make it prohibitive everywhere. I mean, if they'd have had their way, and it did look touch and go at one moment, they might actually be successful and they might somehow get it through that COP7 would advise governments worldwide to ban e-cigs. They didn't get that. What's come through is still quite appalling because it allows prohibition in some countries, and India have obviously jumped straight in and done it, and obviously Thailand and all the others are probably going to do the same. But at the same time, think of it the other way, we've basically been left with something which is about the same as what came out of COP6. So for the next 2 years, we have a chance, not just us, but the scientists and people that are supposedly on our side, and I've got as many doubts as you, Dave, about how many are truly pro-vaping, but they have another 2 years now to prove that they are pro-vaping. We have another 2 years to get science sorted out. So when COP8 comes around, there's a chance that then we could sort of turn it around and actually get something meaningful out of COP. We've also understood a lot more about how these COPs work in the last, like COP7 and COP6, because there's more awareness, because vapors are much more engaged than we were before. And so all these things are starting to come out, all these little secrets they've got. We're starting to work out how they work. We're starting to work out the personnel behind it and the little factions that are involved. So we have a 2 year window now to get the science sorted, which the science should pick up exponentially, because it has been in the last 2 years. It hopefully should do again. And in 2 years' time, we might have a completely different conference. Like you said, we can petition politicians to say, look, if we're paying money to these people, they have to let the media in to report them. We can do all those sort of things. There's 2 years now that we've got, and then hopefully COP8, which is only in Geneva, and I've already heard reports that lots of vapors want to go over there. We could have a whole load of vapors over there, right on their front door, saying, remember 2 years ago you said we were just shills for big tobacco companies? Well, come and tell us that to our face. We've got 2 years now to the next one, where things hopefully will improve. I can only see it getting better from now on, because of the way the things are going. I mean, people like Simon Chapman and Martin McKee, they're looking like dinosaur outliers now. They're just barking at the moon in their little corner somewhere, and they're just being overtaken by history. So we've got 2 years to go, and I think that's a positive thing, because we've got past this one. There is not a thing there the COP7 are not coming out and saying we should prohibit e-cigs everywhere. They're letting some basket cake nations prohibit if they like. But we've got 2 years where we can get things better, and things can look better in 2 years in Geneva. I think that's a thing anyway.
I would agree. I mean, we've got chance. We've got an organisation that can go worldwide, that can bring together the voices of vapors everywhere. We all know where Geneva is. Most people can get there. We need to, I think, cultivate the friends and make them proper friends, and make sure that they are singing off the right hymn sheet. We need, I think, to insist that our delegations from everywhere where there's an effective vapor consumer organisation, those delegations ought to be made to sing from the right hymn sheet. And if we're not going to get FCTC to leave e-cigs alone, then we've got to get them to give them the respect they deserve and do the right thing. How does that sit with you, Dave?
Geneva's nice. Let's go.
Right, so there we have it, basically. We've got 2 years to get all the ducks in a row, to get all the stuff.
So we'll start planning that in October 2018 then. It's almost too far away, isn't it? It's almost too far away.
Well,
we need... and do you know, it's funny... That was some positive news, Dick, and nearing the end of the show, that's always a nice place to leave it. But there was a part of me that was kind of hoping that COP7 was going to finish with some recommendation on prohibition of e-cigs, because I think that would have caused a few governments, not least of all the EU ones, to scratch the surface a bit and say, hang on a minute, we've done all this, this. What are you wasting our fucking money on? But I take your point. We'll never know whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, really. But you know, the kind of it didn't help with the US election going on, I suppose. But it's just totally below. I haven't seen any mention of it on UK media review. The press has picked it up in the last day or two.
Yeah, there's been a
Pretty
few.
much everybody missed it, didn't they? It's a good day to bury bad news or something, is it?
There have been a few articles, and they're mostly not great. You know, it's
Yeah.
which is sad, but you know it is being mentioned, and I'm sure there'll be, you know, Faith Goldie when she gets home, low and southern, they'll cause all sorts of, and they've got lots of followers. They'll cause a great deal of fuss. What I was really impressed with when I was over there was watching the COP7 hashtag feed get completely overwhelmed by vapors all over the world, not just here, but you know, in South America, you know, in the middle of the night, that all of a sudden all these Spanish speaking people just turned up and just swarmed it as well. So it was almost like the world was doing it in shifts. And there was the COP7 kept sending out push notifications from their app saying, please use this COP7 hashtag, please use this. They were desperately trying to get their people onto that hashtag because they were being overwhelmed. So, you know, they know we're here, they know that the public are around, they know that they're being watched, and in 2 years' time it might be a completely different story. But it needs the pressure to be kept on them, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got, it won't happen by accident, I don't think. I just saw a comment in chat about we can all say with DK. I've seen that. I've never been to Geneva. Never been to Geneva, so if you're staying with me, you'll be taking your chances.
I take the point, Dave, that you know it's 2 years away, and let's face it, when the TPD was passed through, it was over 2 years away, and
That's right.
people sat back. It's what we did. We're all guilty of doing a little bit of that. Well, it's 2 years away, but we've learned from that. I think we've learned from that anyway, and I think we've learned that we can actually do something if we set our minds to it, and I think we probably should. We've got 2 years to get this organised. We need to get our heads into gear now, and we need to do something about all of this, because if we don't, we're going to end up, as Dave says, in October of 2018 going, oh shit, it's next week. You know.
It would be great to get 200 vapors turning up in Geneva and demanding one of 30 tickets in their public gallery.
Wouldn't it just?
Wouldn't it?
Let them try and tell us we're part of the tobacco industry. Go on.
Okay, we'll wait here then.
Yeah.
In the lobby.
We ain't going anywhere. Yeah.
Yes, I can just imagine the buggers going through. We know you, out. We know you, out. We don't know you. Oh, and you head up Inco. Oh, you're from Inco. And you were from Inco. Oh, and you were an Inco affiliate. And you're an Inco affiliate. And you're an Inco. Oh my God. We've got 5,000 Inco affiliates here wanting to get into the public gallery. And what, if you don't get in, you're holding your own conference and A Billion Lives, the sequel, is playing at it? Oh, shit.
It'd be nice, though, wouldn't it, to be in that gallery and ask the commissaire or the security, is it okay if we vape?
I like that. I like that. You wicked you are. I like that.
I guarantee you that no one stealth vaped in the public gallery at this one.
Okay.
Well, it's probably a lot healthier inside than it was outside with all that chuffing smoke.
Yeah. Yeah, it smelt bad.
How on earth they can hold a conference like that with that subject matter in a country where the air pollution is so bad that it's actually worse than smoking?
Just adds to the farce, doesn't it?
Just saying.
And where the venue was much, much worse than in New Delhi itself as well. The further out we went on the motorway out to the venue, it just got thicker and thicker and thicker, and it stank. In New Delhi, it wasn't that bad. It sort of stayed a little bit higher up. But once you went out into Greater Noida, where this conference was, you could smell it. It was like, if you've ever smelt sulphur or ammonia, it smelled like that. It was absolutely horrible.
Wonderful.
Yes. Well, I think we've covered the FCTC COP7 about as much as I feel I can stomach for tonight. Grateful thanks to Dick Puddlecote for coming along and sharing his experiences and for everything he did. Round of applauses all around. Thanks, Dick. It's fabulous work, and I really do appreciate you coming. Marco has, in our private chat, said he's tweeted Lauren Southern. And who was the other one?
Faith Goldie.
Faith Golding, that's it.
That's it.
Lauren Southern, Faith Golding. So you were onto that one, Marco, yes? There you go. So I'm gonna bring it to a close there. Like I say, grateful thanks to Dick, to Dave and to Marco for joining us all tonight. Thank you for everybody tuning in. If you're watching it on catch up, listen to what we've said, please, and do get this promulgated. INCO, get following INCO. Get all the vapor organisations joining up to INCO, and get on to your local vaping organisations wherever you are in the world and give them your support. They're fighting for you, but they need you to fight alongside. Let your voices be heard. Raise up your eyes to the vape clouds and shout. Because if we don't, we're fucked. So from all of us here, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the flip side. Until then, vape on, vape hard, and don't let the bastards grind you down. Say night night, everybody.
No, everybody.
See you later. Bye.
It's brilliant to have you on. It's fantastic.
That was good fun.
Well, there, that was good. That was excellent. Thank you so much, Mark.
I was a little bit nervous earlier, so I'm glad that went okay. Having said that, I haven't watched myself back yet.